In our modern age, the internet often feels like an ethereal, boundless entity, a cloud of data we access wirelessly. Yet, beneath this illusion of intangibility lies a vast, physical network, largely hidden from view. According to industry analysts, the global internet is profoundly dependent on thousands of miles of fiber-optic cables, not orbiting satellites, but instead resting silently on the ocean floor. This submerged infrastructure, a testament to human ingenuity, forms the true backbone of our interconnected world, carrying an astonishing 99% of all international data traffic. It is a hidden marvel, and its very existence shapes our digital reality. The concept of transoceanic communication cables is not new. It traces its origins back to the 19th century, with the first transatlantic telegraph cable laid in 1858. However, the modern era of deep-sea connectivity began in earnest with fiber optics. The first fiber-optic transoceanic cable, T88, was deployed in 1988, revolutionizing data transmission. Experts at organizations like Telegeography, a telecommunications market research firm, note that these cables transmit information as pulses of light, traveling at nearly the speed of light itself. This technological leap transformed global communication, making instantaneous, high-bandwidth connections a reality. To fully grasp the Internet's physical foundation, one must appreciate its sheer scale. According to data compiled by Telegeography, there are now over 500 active subsea cables spanning the world's oceans. These cables collectively stretch for approximately 1.3 million kilometers, a distance that could wrap around the Earth more than 30 times. This immense network connects continents, countries, and even remote islands, forming a truly global web. Each cable represents a massive investment, both financially and in terms of engineering prowess, yet their existence often remains a footnote in our daily digital lives. What exactly makes up these conduits of global data? A deep-sea fiber optic cable is a marvel of material science and engineering. While often just a few inches thick, its construction is incredibly robust. At its core are hair-thin strands of glass fiber, through which light signals travel. These delicate fibers are encased in layers of plastic, copper tubing for power, steel wires for strength, and various protective sheaths. The design varies depending on the depth and environment, with shallower segments often featuring additional armor to resist external damage, as detailed by cable manufacturers like Subcom and Alcatel Submarine Networks. Laying these cables is an undertaking of epic proportions. Cable laying ships, which can be hundreds of meters long, carry thousands of kilometers of cable in massive tanks. These specialized vessels slowly traverse the oceans, deploying the cable onto the seabed. The process requires precise navigation and sophisticated equipment to ensure the cable follows the planned route, avoiding geological hazards like underwater volcanoes or unstable slopes. Engineering teams, often from companies like TE Subcom, carefully monitor tension and depth, ensuring the cable settles gently, sometimes more than 8,000 meters below the surface, where pressures are immense. Before a single meter of cable is laid, exhaustive surveying of the ocean floor is conducted. Specialized hydrographic survey vessels use multi-beam sonar to create highly detailed maps of the seabed, identifying optimal routes and potential dangers. Geologists and oceanographers analyze bathymetric data, seismic profiles, and sediment samples to understand the stability and composition of the marine environment. This meticulous planning phase, crucial for minimizing future maintenance issues, can take years for a single major cable project, as emphasized by experts in marine geology and subsea engineering publications. While light carries the data, electricity is vital for its journey across oceans. Repeaters, spaced every 50 to 70 kilometers along the cable, boost the optical signal, preventing degradation over vast distances. These repeaters require power, which is supplied by a continuous electrical current sent along the copper conductors within the cable itself from the shore-based landing stations. According to telecommunications engineers, without this constant power supply, the signal would quickly fade, rendering long-haul transoceanic communication impossible. The robust power infrastructure is as critical as the fiber optics for maintaining the Internet's flow. The journey of data doesn't end at the shore. Subsea cables connect to cable landing stations, discrete, highly secure facilities often located in remote coastal areas. Here, the optical signals are converted into electrical signals and connected to terrestrial fiber-optic networks. These stations are crucial gateways, serving as the interface between the ocean's depths and the Internet's terrestrial backbone. The security and operational integrity of these landing stations are paramount, as they represent critical points of vulnerability, as noted by cybersecurity experts examining national infrastructure defenses. Despite their robust construction and deep-sea placement, these vital arteries are far from invulnerable. Experts across government and industry have increasingly voiced concerns about the fragility of this global network. These concerns range from accidental damage caused by human activity to the growing specter of deliberate sabotage by hostile state actors. As the world becomes ever more reliant on digital connectivity for everything from finance to healthcare, the integrity of these deep-sea cables represents a critical national and international security challenge. Their hidden nature ironically contributes to their perceived security, but this perception is increasingly being challenged. Historically, the most common cause of cable damage has been accidental. Fishing trawlers dragging their nets and ship anchors are significant culprits. According to a 2021 report by the International Cable Protection Committee, ICPC, human activities, particularly fishing and anchoring, account for approximately two-thirds of all reported cable faults. While cables are buried in shallower waters to mitigate this risk, deeper sections remain exposed. Each incident, though often isolated, can disrupt communication for days or weeks, particularly in remote regions, underscoring the constant threat of unintentional interference. Natural phenomena also pose a significant threat. Earthquakes, particularly those occurring in tectonically active regions like the Pacific Rim, can trigger underwater landslides capable of severing multiple cables simultaneously. The 2006 Hangchuan earthquake near Taiwan, for instance, caused widespread internet disruption across Asia. Volcanic activity, tsunamis, and powerful ocean currents can also stress or damage cables. While engineers strive to route cables away from known hazard zones, the dynamic nature of the ocean floor means no route is entirely immune, a challenge consistently highlighted by geological risk assessments. While often sensationalized, actual shark bites are a relatively minor concern. Early coaxial cables were occasionally gnawed by sharks, likely due to electromagnetic fields attracting them. However, modern fiber-optic cables, with their stronger, non-metallic outer layers and different electrical characteristics, are far less susceptible. While incidents have been documented, they are rare and typically involve isolated damage, not widespread outages. This persistent myth, though amusing, often overshadows the more serious, systemic threats, as clarified by marine biologists and cable operators. Far more concerning than accidental damage is the potential for deliberate sabotage. As former NATO Commander Admiral James Stavridis and others have warned, subsea cables represent a critical vulnerability for nation-states. Disruption of these cables could cripple an adversary's economy, communications, and military capabilities. Intelligence agencies from various nations are known to actively map cable routes and landing stations, identifying potential points of attack. The clandestine nature of such operations makes attribution difficult, adding another layer of complexity to protection strategies. The ocean floor has emerged as a new geopolitical battleground. Reports from organizations like the Royal United Services Institute, RUSI, highlight increased activity by Russian naval vessels near critical cable infrastructure in the Atlantic. Similarly, strategic competition between the United States and China often involves securing or potentially threatening these digital lifelines in the Pacific and Indian Oceans. The placement of new cables, their ownership, and the routing through certain territories are now subjects of intense strategic debate, reflecting their importance in global power projection and economic influence. Analysts in Western defense circles, including those at the UK's Ministry of Defence, have repeatedly pointed to Russia's significant investment in unconventional underwater capabilities. This includes specialized research submarines and unmanned underwater vehicles, UUVs, reportedly designed for deep-sea operations, including the mapping, surveillance, and potentially the interdiction of subsea cables. While direct evidence of sabotage remains elusive, the intent and capability are a source of profound concern for NATO members and their allies, prompting increased maritime patrols and intelligence gathering efforts. China, through its Digital Silk Road initiative, is also heavily invested in expanding its influence over global digital infrastructure, including subsea cables. Companies like Huawei Marine, now HMN Technologies, have played a significant role in laying cables worldwide, sometimes raising concerns among Western intelligence agencies about potential backdoors or surveillance capabilities. This strategic push is viewed by some policy experts as an attempt to reshape global internet traffic flows and potentially gain leverage in future conflicts, highlighting the complex intersection of commerce, technology, and national security. While the global cable network appears robust, with multiple redundant routes, specific regions and critical junctions can still represent single points of failure. Choke points, such as the Suez Canal region, the Strait of Malacca, or shallow seas with high traffic, concentrate many cables in relatively small areas. Damage in these locations could have disproportionately severe consequences. Moreover, some countries rely heavily on a very limited number of cables, making them acutely vulnerable to severance, a risk frequently emphasized in infrastructure resilience studies. What would actually happen if a major subsea cable were severed, particularly in a critical region? Initially, users might experience slow internet speeds, interrupted video calls, or website failures as traffic is automatically rerouted. However, if multiple cables are cut simultaneously, especially those without sufficient redundancy, entire regions could be plunged into digital darkness. Major cloud services, streaming platforms, and international communications would cease. The immediate impact would be felt in real time by billions, according to cybersecurity incident response protocols which detail escalating scenarios. The economic ramifications of a widespread cable severance would be catastrophic. Financial markets, which rely on ultra-fast data transmission for trillions of dollars in transactions daily, would grind to a halt. International banking, trade, and supply chains would instantly seize up. Businesses unable to communicate or process orders would face immense losses, leading to widespread bankruptcies and unemployment. Economists modeling such scenarios, like those at Lloyd's of London, predict potential global economic losses running into trillions of dollars over a short period, illustrating an unprecedented disruption to global commerce. Beyond finance, daily life would be profoundly disrupted. Healthcare systems, increasingly reliant on cloud-based patient records and telehealth, would face severe challenges. Emergency services, communications, and logistical networks could be compromised. Education, entertainment, and social interactions, all deeply integrated with the internet, would be severely curtailed. While local services might function on independent networks, the global flow of information would be severed, leading to widespread confusion and isolation, as described in governmental preparedness reports for critical infrastructure failures. Developing nations, which often have less redundant infrastructure and rely heavily on a few key cable connections for their integration into the global economy, would be particularly devastated. Their nascent digital economies, e-commerce platforms, and access to global information would be severely hampered. International aid, remittances, and humanitarian efforts could also be significantly disrupted, exacerbating existing vulnerabilities. This disproportionate impact is a critical concern for organizations working on digital inclusion and development, emphasizing the need for equitable and resilient infrastructure. When a cable is severed, the repair process is arduous and expensive. Specialized repair ships, equipped with remotely operated vehicles, ROVs, and grapples, must locate the break. The damaged sections are then brought to the surface, spliced, and relayed. This process can take days or weeks, depending on weather conditions, depth, and the availability of a repair vessel. Companies like Global Marine Systems are on call globally to address such emergencies, but severe damage to multiple cables could overwhelm existing repair capabilities, prolonging outages indefinitely, a scenario explored by maritime logistics experts. The financial cost of a single cable repair can range from hundreds of thousands to several $1 million, not including the economic losses incurred during downtime. These costs are typically borne by the consortiums of telecommunications companies and internet service providers that jointly own the cables. While insurance can cover some expenses, the broader economic fallout from prolonged outages dwarfs the direct repair costs. The sheer scale of potential damage highlights the need for substantial investment in protective measures and redundancy, as financial risk assessments repeatedly conclude. Recognizing the shared vulnerability, international cooperation is essential for protecting this critical infrastructure. Organizations like the International Cable Protection Committee, ICPC, facilitate collaboration between cable owners, governments, and maritime industries. Treaties and international laws, such as the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea, UNCLOS, also provide frameworks for the protection of subsea cables, making damage to them a serious offense. However, enforcement in international waters, particularly against state-sponsored actors, remains a complex challenge, as international legal scholars often point out. Governments play a crucial role in safeguarding these digital lifelines. This includes intelligence gathering to monitor potential threats, increased naval patrols in critical areas, and developing robust cybersecurity defenses for landing stations and terrestrial networks. Some nations are also investing in alternative communication technologies, though none currently offer the bandwidth or latency of fiber optics. National security doctrines are increasingly incorporating subsea cable protection as a top priority, reflecting the evolving nature of hybrid warfare, according to defense policy papers. To mitigate the impact of individual cable failures, the industry invests heavily in redundancy. Major internet hubs typically have multiple cables connecting them to different destinations, providing alternative routes for data if one cable is cut. However, this redundancy is not uniform across all regions, and specific choke points remain. Building truly resilient networks requires not just more cables, but diverse routing through different geopolitical zones and seabed topographies, a key recommendation from telecommunications infrastructure consultants. Ongoing technological advancements aim to enhance cable security and resilience. Improved cable designs feature stronger armoring and better burial techniques in vulnerable areas. Advanced monitoring systems use optical time domain reflectometry, OTDR, to pinpoint cable faults with greater precision, reducing repair times. Furthermore, the development of new, more efficient fiber optics allows for higher data capacity, potentially reducing the number of physical cables needed for the same traffic volume. These innovations, constantly evolving, are crucial for adapting to new threats, as highlighted in engineering journals. While governments secure the macro landscape, the private sector is at the forefront of building, operating, and maintaining these cables. Telecommunications giants, content providers like Google and Meta, and specialized cable companies form consortiums to fund and manage these multi-billion-dollar projects. Their engineers and mariners are the ones on the front lines, literally deploying and repairing the infrastructure. This collaboration between diverse private entities is unique, but it also creates complex ownership and operational challenges, as examined in business case studies of infrastructure development. One of the greatest challenges to protecting subsea cables is public awareness. Because the infrastructure is out of sight, it is often out of mind. This lack of understanding can hinder public support for necessary investments in security and resilience. Experts, including those at think tanks focused on national security, argue that greater transparency about the risks, without creating undue panic, is vital. Only by understanding the critical role these cables play can societies truly appreciate their vulnerability and advocate for their robust protection. As technology advances, so too do the threats. Future challenges might include more sophisticated underwater drones capable of stealthy cable interdiction, or even cyberattacks targeting the operational technology of repeaters and landing stations. The ongoing development of quantum computing could also eventually threaten current encryption standards, though this is a longer-term concern. Staying ahead of these evolving threats requires continuous investment in research, intelligence, and defensive capabilities, a constant arms race in the digital and maritime domains, according to futurists and cybersecurity strategists. The Internet, for all its perceived ubiquity, is fundamentally tethered to the physical world by these deep-sea cables. They are not merely conduits for data, they are the literal lifelines of our global economy, social interaction, and national security. The extreme engineering that placed them there is matched only by the extreme vulnerability they face. Protecting this hidden web is not just an infrastructure challenge, it is a matter of global stability and, increasingly, a matter of national survival in an interconnected world, a conclusion drawn by numerous national security policy reviews. The battle for control and security of the deep-sea cables is largely silent, unfolding beneath the waves and in the war rooms of intelligence agencies. It's a conflict where the tools are not always traditional weaponry, but rather advanced submersibles, cyber exploits, and strategic influence. As citizens of a digitally dependent world, understanding this hidden struggle is paramount. The invisible infrastructure beneath the waves demands our attention, for its integrity directly underpins the daily lives and prosperity of billions. The fate of our digital future rests on these fragile threads.